Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you how to keep those annoying, pesky mice, rats out of your house or apartment. I'm going to give you guys some proven helpful tips and suggestions for keeping that house or apartment pest free. I want you guys to listen up really carefully, watch the video. If you still have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it if it is able to help you. Let's get started. So in my experience, the number one way to get rid of mice, to get rid of rats from your house or apartment is to prevent them from coming in the first place. If these mice get into your apartment or house, or rats get in, they procreate so much that it's hard to get rid of them. So the number one way to prevent is to keep them from getting in there in the first place. And what that means is we have to figure out how they're getting in, and we have to stop them. Typically, mice get into a house, get into an apartment by holes. They crawl in, they burrow in, they bite their way in. And if you have a hole in your apartment around the walls or in the closets or even around the doors, or if you have a hole around the perimeter of your house that's large enough for you to put a pin through it, a typical writing pin, if you have a hole large enough to put a pin through it, then you have a space that a mouse can get into that house or apartment, start procreating, and then it's hard to get rid of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for those openings, and once we find those openings, we're going to seal them up. We have a couple of different options for sealing. We have what we call insulating foam sealant, but it's not a typical insulating foam sealant. This one comes in a green container. Typically you can get these online, Amazon, eBay. You can get these from hardware stores, Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever you have in your area if you want to pick them up locally. And you want to make sure that it says pest block. Don't get any foam sealant, because not all of them are created equally. Most foam sealants, mice, rats can bite right through it and get into your apartment. They pretty much, you find a hole, you seal it up. If you use the wrong one, they'll bite right through it and get in. You want to look for one that has pest block on it. Another thing that we're going to use, steel wool pads. Why steel wool? Because these are materials that mice, rats can't bite through. If they start biting and gnawing at these wool pads, what's going to happen is this metal material is going to start cutting up their insides, and they're going to die sooner than later. So typically what they'll try to do is they'll try to avoid biting through material like this. Other materials that we're going to use, if need be, we have sticky pads, sticky traps. These work very effectively if you place these along the lines where you usually see mice or rats running, right? Obviously you need a big one for a rat. But these are small enough for a mouse to get on and its entire body to be trapped and will never be able to get off of. Another thing that I want you to consider as well, pest repellent pellets. You can actually dump these around the house. You can dump these around your garden if they're going and messing with your crops. And these produce such a foul smelling odor that pests typically will stay away from whatever barrier you put this around. So, with the understanding that preventing them from getting into your place is the best way for you to get rid of them, you got to understand how they get into your apartment or house to begin with. One of the most common ways for them to get in is through the actual plumbing. Looking at heating systems, so you have many different heating systems. You have baseboard, radiators, central air, etc. Baseboard heating systems like this create pipes which actually go into your apartment, into your house, and they can also allow pests or vermin to get in through those pipes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this and make sure that they're not getting in through these actual pipes. I'm going to take the edge piece off. I'm going to take this pin off right here. And specifically what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at where the pipe is entering the apartment or entering your house, whatever it is. And I'm going to make sure that there are no openings, no holes the size of a pin around that actual pipe. So I'll bring it closer so you can see. So as you can see, this has been pretty much sealed up with the insulating foam sealant already. If I'm taking my pen and I'm poking around and I'm not finding any way for it to actually seep into or around the pipes, then I'm knowing that they're not going to be, that mice, rats, definitely not rats, but I know that mice aren't going to be allowed to get in this way either. Also understand that just the basic installation of this unit may create openings as well that have nothing to do with the actual plumbing pipes. Specifically, the opening between where the wall and the floor meets may have been moved or expanded with the installation of this unit. So what you want to do is you want to take that pin and you want to kind of poke underneath it as well. And if you see that there's a way where it can actually go through, then you see that there's a way where mice can actually come in. All right, so we're still in the kitchen area. Here we have another baseboard radiator unit. What we're going to do is we're going to take it apart, moving the edge pieces one by one. Then we're going to remove the front pin. And then what we're going to do as well is we're going to take this same pin that we've been using and we're going to check around to make sure that there are no holes where or just little entrances where the pipes are coming into the actual unit, because those are the same entrances that mice can use. I've already placed foam sealing around these pipes, so you're going to see that it is firmly in place. If you do see an entrance, you can use the insulating foam sealant with pest block, or you can use steel wool pads. Cut the wool pads up and stuff them in these little entrances if you see them. Also, if you look carefully, you can see that I've placed insulating foam sealant underneath the radiator piece as well, between the wall and the floor. I'll give you guys a closer look. So you can see that all this work was done in order to prevent any entrances that mice can typically use to come into the actual house or apartment. Another typical entrance that a mouse will use to get into an apartment is underneath your sink. This is a standard kitchen sink. Understand that when plumbing enters into an apartment or house, it creates entrances for other creatures as well to get in. So what you always have to do is you have to, over time, look at those entrances and see if you're creating holes big enough for pests to get in. I've already sealed around here with a combination of steel wool pads and insulating foam sealant. Took no chances. And underneath the bathroom sink as well, you see that this foam sealant was used around these pipes. You gotta look underneath them, all around them. All right, so right now I'm in this bedroom. I checked around baseboards in the other rooms, so just from within the bedroom alone, I'm looking and I can see what appears to be an opening right here. So what I want to do is I want to look as close to the wall as possible, right where the wall and the floor meet. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to take off what we call a molding right here. So if you're a tenant, you may want to ask your landlord for permission before doing this, but I'm the landlord, so I'm pretty much going to remove this myself. And you can easily remove these by, if you have a flathead screwdriver, just stick the flathead between the molding and the wall and just pull out. So that way you can attempt to remove the nails that are holding it in to begin with. And it can usually come off relatively easily. And you're going to put it back the same way. You're going to push it right against the wall. So let me give you guys a closer look. In taking a closer look, you see an entrance into the apartment that any mouse can actually fit into. In fact, if we were to take that same pin, we can stick the entire pin through. So we know that a mouse can stick his entire body through. So this is an area that we're going to have to focus on. A really large area. Not necessarily here, because even though it looked like an opening, it's not an actual opening as after we remove the molding, because you see we can't fit our pin through, but we can easily fit a pin through in this area. So we're going to take care of that right now. So in using the steel wool track, what we're going to do is you typically just unroll it so that way you can get it as flat as possible. And then what you try to do is you want to cut it up into sections, or sometimes even pull it apart, making sure you're wearing gloves and making sure that the gloves are thick enough to where you won't potentially cut yourself with the material. So sometimes you can pull it apart, sometimes you can cut it up, and you just want to stick it. You can even use your pen to do this. Stick it into the area that you have an opening. If you can do it without cutting it, that's even better, because that means you don't create as many sharp edges for yourself to get cut on. So if you can pull it apart, and all I'm doing is I'm pulling it apart, and I'm using the pin to help me stick it in the opening area, the open areas. You don't have to rush to do this. In fact, it pays to take your time, because if you rush, you may miss an opening. And just use the pen, or you can even use a flathead screwdriver, the same one that you use to take the actual molding off, and just stick it in. So we still have some area left. Rolling it open. And your wool pads may look a little different from mine. Just make sure that they are steel wool. And you're going to push it in as tightly as possible, so that way, in order to get through, the mouse will have to bite into it to get through. And that's pretty much that. If it doesn't fit into an area, don't force it. Use a screwdriver, but you don't necessarily have to force anything. Just want to make sure that you completely block off that entrance. So that way, the only way they can get in is through biting. And I'll show you what it looks like completed. Completely closed up. And after you're finished, hold on, I think we have another spot right here. That's why it pays not to rush. So let's see if our pen goes through. Our pen does not fit through. But just to be on the safe side and knowing that we have this material here either way, we're still going to just stick some steel wool in here. It's always better to be safer. If you're in this area already, why not? Alright, so that's done. And that's exactly what it looks like. Now all you have to do is replace that molding and you're good to go. All right. So I've taken a look under this baseboard as well, and I've noticed that there are 2 holes underneath larger than the tip of a pen, enough for the actual pen to go into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use more steel wool to seal it up. Now, I told you guys I have insulating foam sealant, I have pest repellent pellets, I have other things that I can use at my disposal. But I always find that the steel wool pads are a little bit easier to use than the other methods, because all you typically really have to do is pull it apart and stuff it in. And I'm going to bring it closer so you can see me do it. But just know that there are a number of ways you can do this. Do it whatever is easier for you. The foam sealant I find Sometimes, you know, you can spray and the spray will get messed up, or you end up spraying yourself and that sealant that it sprays gets stuck on everything. So let me bring it a little bit closer so you can see me use this steel wool pad. That's good. Be able to break it up. It's always better than cutting it. And just use a pen or pencil, or if you have scissors, anything within an inch that you pretty much push it into place. And as long as you jam it in there tight enough to where they would have to bite through it to get through it, which I already told you guys will kill them, then you're right on point. So I'm good here. And just to be on the safe side. All the entrances are sealed up. Now just remember, when you're using steel wool, make sure you push it into the hole enough to where it can't be easily pushed out. So now I'm on the side of the outside of the property. The same thing that you do inside to prevent the pests from coming in is the same thing you do on the outside. You want to make sure that you go along the walls of the property where the ground meets the actual foundation wall. And if you see anything large enough for a mouse to go through, then it has to be sealed up with the steel wool. I usually bring a yoga mat with me when I do work outside, just in case I need to get down on the ground. It provides a nice, comfortable surface for you to stand on, sit on, or just lay down on as you go, and you make sure that wherever you have the openings, you seal them up. This is the most crucial part, because once they're in your home, it's hard to get rid of them. You want to make sure that you work on the outside, you work on the inside, and you get a comprehensive covering to prevent them from going into your property. Make sure you go around the entire perimeter. If there's an area blocked off, you have to get access to it. If you can prevent them from getting in, then you can keep them from becoming pests. So let me just take it in a little closer. You guys can see that I've already used the insulating foam sealant to seal up this area. Now, I did this maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. Any areas where I used my pencil or pen and it went through, I used the foam sealant to lock off that area, not excluding any windows that are boarded up, any openings. None of this stuff is bitten through because they don't bite through it. In rare instances they will, but in most instances they don't. And if they ever do, then you use the steel wool instead. And this stuff can also be trimmed off or knocked off to where whatever's protruding will just be pretty much flush. So just going along this entire wall. This is the exterior wall of the house. And you can see how these entrances are locked up with steel wool. Alright, so we've gone all around the interior of the apartment, sealing up any entrances that are large enough for mice to get in. We've gone all around the exterior of the building, sealing up entrances that are large enough for mice to get in. Why would you still have mice? Couple of things. Maybe they're already in. So if you already have a mouse infestation and you sealed up, what you're going to have to understand is you're going to see more of them because they have nowhere to hide. Like they're literally trapped scurrying around inside your house where you can see, because they can't sneak off back into the walls. Usually they hide in the walls, they bring in food, and they live in the walls of the home. So once you seal up, you're going to start seeing more of them. What you're going to have to do if you have that issue is you're going to have to use the sticky traps. Place them where you see them. Little corners where they like to hide. Wherever you see their feces is where they like to go to use the bathroom. Place these sticky traps there. And the more you catch, eventually you're going to start seeing less and less of them. Also, you have to consider your habits. If you're feeding them, they're going to continue to multiply, they're going to continue to grow. Keep your food locked away in glass or plastic containers where they're not accessible to vermin, right? You have to make sure that you provide them no food and no shelter, and eventually they'll be gone. These are just some strategies that I use to get rid of mice from my house, from my apartments. If you feel that you have any comments or suggestions, please write them down, leave the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I hope this has been helpful for you, and I hope that eventually you no longer see any mice, rats, or vermin in your home.